Welcome to The Stack. It is March 25, 2026, and I am your host. Every day, we look past the hype of the news cycle to find the stories of genuine discovery, the engineering breakthroughs, the biological wonders, and the physics that explain how our world is being rebuilt. Today, we are looking at everything from a massive architectural shift in how we play games to the rodents quietly outperforming our best carbon capture technology. We have a lot to get through, so let's dive into the stack. There is a software project that just saw a game jump from 110 frames per second to over 860. For 30 years, a project called Wine has acted as a real-time translator, painstakingly teaching Linux how to speak Windows so it can run PC games. It is usually a story of incremental, thankless work. But Wine 11 represents a fundamental architectural shift. Instead of just fixing bugs, developers moved the synchronization logic, how a game manages thousands of simultaneous tasks, out of the software layer and directly into the Linux kernel through a new feature called NTSY Sync. By mimicking the Windows NT kernel at this deep level, the software removes the translation tax that causes micro stutters and battery drain. While some enthusiasts on Reddit are tempering expectations, noting that most users already use decent workarounds, the consensus is that this finally replaces decades of fragile hacks with a native, rock-solid foundation. It turns the Linux desktop and the Steam Deck into much more efficient gaming machines by removing the friction between the game and the hardware. The Stack's take. This shift proves that the most impactful progress often happens in the invisible plumbing of the web, where cleaning up decades of legacy workarounds provides a bigger boost than any new flashy feature. Your next electric vehicle battery might be powered by whiskey waste. Every gallon of bourbon produced in Kentucky creates roughly 10 gallons of stillage, an acidic, nutrient-heavy grain mash left over after distillation. For 200 years, this has been a disposal headache for distilleries, who often have to pay to haul the slop away. Now, chemists at the University of Kentucky have demonstrated a method to transform this watery sludge into high-grade activated carbon using a high-intensity pressure cooking technique. This carbon is used to build supercapacitors, which are energy storage devices that charge and discharge in seconds. These bourbon-derived electrodes actually match the performance of expensive, high-end commercial storage. The researchers are targeting rapid burst needs, like regenerative braking in EVs or stabilizing the power grid. There are questions about whether stillage from different grain recipes, like a wheated versus a high rye bourbon, will produce consistent carbon. But the potential is massive for a $9 billion industry looking to turn a waste stream into a tech supply chain. The Stack's take. By turning an environmental liability into a critical component for the green transition, this discovery shows how circular engineering can solve two problems with one single elegant process. Scientists have found a way to make semiconductors 20 times brighter by carving bubbles of nothing into a crystal. As we reach the physical limits of silicon chips, researchers are looking at 2D materials, sheets just one atom thick to build ultra-fast light-based electronics. The problem is that because these materials are so thin, light usually passes right through them without doing much. To fix this, researchers at the University of Lodz didn't change the material, they changed the space beneath it. They carved tiny air-filled cavities, called me-voids, and draped a single layer of tungsten disulfide over them like a drumhead. These voids act as light traps, forcing photons to circulate and intensify exactly where the material sits. The result is a 2000% boost in brightness. It is like an acoustic guitar. The strings provide the vibration, but the hollow body resonates and amplifies the sound. The challenge now is keeping these microscopic drums from popping during manufacturing, as suspending atom-thick layers over holes makes them incredibly fragile. The Stack's take. This reframe, focusing on the environment around a material rather than the material itself, opens a path for medical sensors so sensitive they could detect a single virus molecule on a smartphone chip. The internet is quietly losing its anonymity at the hardware level. For 30 years, the web functioned on the idea of open access, where moderation happened after you posted something. But a new wave of global regulations, like the UK Online Safety Act, is forcing a total re-architecture of the web. We are moving towards what experts call an identity-mediated web. This means instead of a website asking for your birth date, the check happens at the operating system or hardware level. That your smartphone effectively becomes a digital bouncer, using biometrics or government ID to verify who you are before the browser even loads a page. While framed as a way to protect children, critics and privacy advocates are worried about mission creep. This shift turns Apple and Google into the world's primary identity gatekeepers. On platforms like Reddit, the anxiety is palpable, with many pointing out that this creates a permanent digital paper trail for every site you visit. It is a transition from a web of protocols to a web of gated identities. The stack's take: when identity becomes a mandatory gate for access, we risk trading the internet's greatest strength, the freedom to explore without a permanent record, for a false sense of security that bad actors will likely bypass anyway. Imagine a battery that charges faster the more power you try to shove into it. This is the phenomenon of superabsorption, and it is the heart of the first ever quantum battery. Unlike your phone, which slows down its charging as it gets full, this experimental device uses laser pulses to charge organic dye molecules in quadrillionths of a second, or femtoseconds. If this technology could be scaled up, a 1-minute charge would provide enough energy to last a car for 2 years. The science involves using light to kick molecules into a high-energy excited state simultaneously, bypassing the slow chemical reactions used in traditional ion batteries. The catch, however, is that while it charges instantly, it currently only holds that energy for a few nanoseconds before it leaks away. It is a lab miracle that isn't quite ready for them all. The ratio of charging time to holding time is already a massive leap for quantum physics, and researchers believe this will eventually power ultra-fast sensors and quantum computers that would be melted by the heat of traditional charging. The stack's take: while commercial use is years away, this breakthrough challenges our fundamental understanding of energy transfer, moving us from the slow world of chemistry to the instantaneous world of light. There is a star in the constellation Cassiopeia that has been baffling astronomers for 50 years because it is simply too hot. Gamma Cassiopeiae is visible to the naked eye, but in the X-ray spectrum it screams at temperatures of 100 million degrees Celsius. That is 10 times hotter than the center of the sun, a temperature that was thought to be physically impossible for a star of its class. For decades, a quiet civil war has played out in astrophysics journals. One camp thought the star had a freakish magnetic field, the other thought there was a hidden companion star. Using Japan's new X-RISM space telescope, scientists finally found the answer. A stealth white dwarf is orbiting the star, pulling in gas and creating a high-energy crash site that generates the extreme heat. This discovery confirms a missing link in how stars evolve and eventually die. It helps us better understand the binary systems that lead to tight Eos supernovas, which are the standard candles we use to measure how fast the entire universe is expanding. The stack's take: solving this 50-year mystery reminds us that the most chaotic, impossible-looking signals in nature usually have a logical, physical explanation once our tools become sharp enough to see them. The history of the power grid is about to repeat itself in reverse. In the 1880s, the War of the Currents saw Nikola Tesla's AC power win over Thomas Edison's DC power because AC could travel long distances. But today, every AI chip on the planet runs on DC. Currently, our massive data centers act like giant inefficient laptop bricks, converting power back and forth up to 4 times before it reaches a GPU. For traditional data centers, the loss was acceptable. But AI racks now pull as much power as 12 average homes, and the conversion waste is becoming a crisis. Major players like Nvidia and Microsoft are now moving to skip the conversion entirely, switching the internal architecture of data centers back to high-voltage DC. This move can boost efficiency by 10%. In a world where a single facility can consume as much electricity as a small city, that 10% represents enough energy to power thousands of homes without adding a single new power plant to the grid. The stack's take: as AI drives energy demand to unprecedented levels, the most important innovation isn't a better algorithm, but the engineering courage to rethink a 140-year-old power standard for the sake of efficiency. The single family of beavers can store more carbon than an entire forest, and they do it for free. For years, we have looked at man-made dams as environmental negatives because they can release methane from rotting vegetation. But a 13-year study in Switzerland of a beaver-engineered wetland found the exact opposite. These rodents act as ecosystem engineers, slowing down water and causing organic material like leaves and soil to settle into deep layers of sediment. In just over a decade, one site sequestered 1,100 tons of carbon equivalent to filling 2 Olympic swimming pools with charcoal. The carbon storage in these beaver ponds is 8 times higher than in the surrounding forest soil. Even more surprising, the study found that the methane release was nearly non-existent, debunking the idea that beaver dams are a climate liability. As beavers recolonize Europe and North America, they are quietly building a massive, self-maintaining network of carbon sinks that requires zero high-tech intervention or government funding. They are simply resetting the landscape to a state that hasn't existed for centuries. The stack's take. This research shows that the most effective climate solutions are often biological, not mechanical, if we are willing to step back and let native species do the engineering for us. We have just discovered an entirely new branch of life in a part of the ocean we are about to start mining for batteries. Researchers exploring the Clarion-Clipperton zone in the Pacific found 24 new species of deep-sea amphipods. While finding new species is common in the deep, they discovered an entirely new superfamily. In biological terms, that is like finding not just a new type of cat, but an entirely new branch of the feline tree that no one knew existed. This area, which is twice the size of India, is also the target for deep-sea mining because it is covered in rocks rich in cobalt and nickel. This creates a high-stakes tension between the green transition and biodiversity. So we need these metals for electric vehicles, but recent trials show that mining machines cause a 32% drop in species diversity in their path. That we are essentially in a race to catalogue life before we accidentally destroy it in our quest for the materials we need to save the planet's climate. The stack's take. The irony of destroying an ancient, unexplored ecosystem to harvest the materials for a green future is a trade-off we must face, with total transparency about what we are losing. Since the 1960s, space travel has been limited by how much liquid fuel we can set on fire. But NASA has just announced a pivot to nuclear-powered flight with a mission set for 2028. The spacecraft, named Space Reactor 1 Freedom, will use a fission reactor to heat propellant, making the engine twice as efficient as the best rockets we have today. This isn't just about moving faster, it is about safety. A nuclear engine could cut the trip to Mars from 9 months down to just 3 or 4. This would halve the time astronauts spend exposed to lethal deep space radiation. While the engineering community is skeptical about the 2028 deadline, calling it highly optimistic given NASA's recent delays, the goal is to build a commercial supply chain for space-rated reactors. This mission echoes the NERVA program of the 1960s, which was ready for flight before it was cut for budget reasons. If it succeeds, it will turn Mars from a distant, dangerous goal into a manageable logistics route. The stack's take, shifting from chemical to nuclear propulsion, is the necessary leap that moves us from being a species that visits space to a species that can reliably inhabit it. That is the stack from March 25, 2026. From the Linux kernel to the deep-sea floor, it is clear that we are in a period of intense re-architecting, finding new ways to power our lives, move through the solar system, and protect our environment. If you found these stories as fascinating as I did, share this show with a friend who loves to know how things actually work. I am your host, and I will be back tomorrow with more stories of discovery. Until then, keep looking at the world with a curious eye.